doing that. I want to make sure that guys have that opportunity to gain this knowledge. Um, Anything I do, I will share out with anybody that wants to have it. If you want college stuff, I'll share it with you. Um, it's funny that you guys asked that question about recording the test. I run the video or the Thursday night conference calls for the Great Lakes Valley Conference, the GRAC, which is the Great Rivers Athletic Conference and Division One Junior College Conference down in Southern Illinois, and let's see, the American Rivers, the CCIW, which is the College Conference of Illinois, Wisconsin, the WEAC, which is the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, I think, um, the NAC, the Northern Athletic Collegiate Conference, I think it is, and there's one more, American Rivers. There's one more, and those five are all Matt Moore's Division three conferences. So I run those on Thursday nights, and we had that this year. We had a guy ask if we were going to record the testing session, and I said no because the NCAA would not want me to do that. And it's the same mindset. I will help you. Like I'm not a good high school rules guy anymore. To be honest with you, I don't know it. But and if so, the only rule book I found was from 2003 online, so I stole this from that. I checked with my middle school baseball coach that I have now at the middle school I'm at, and he's like, "Yeah, that's the same thing." So I'm sure he didn't look, but he said it was the same thing. So if I took this and these page numbers are wrong, I will give me the input. I'll gladly fix it. So it's shared out. It's live in Google. You guys can keep it and keep it in your back pocket. So with that being said, if you have questions anytime, I'm going to ask that you just speak up. Don't put your hand up or anything like that. I won't be able to get to it. Just talk to me and we'll get through it. And if you have questions in the chat, I'll go through those as we're done and answer them. All right, here we go. All right, so batting out of order is brutal, right? It's a lot. A lot of stuff can happen, and it's one of those things that'll pretzel you on the field. So let's get the basic stuff out of the way first. Let's get vocabulary done. The proper batter, the batter who should be batting. Also, the player who will be called out if the team batted out of order. That's the first thing to know. The improper batter. I didn't fix that one for the appeals. I'll fix that one before I put this out, or the attempted play. High school is way easier in this. They make it one thing. It's great. Not all the crap to deal with appeals. But the improper batter is the batter who is batting, and if the team is batting out of order. Appeal is simply the act of a player or coach claiming a violation of the rules by the opposing team or misinterpretation of them by the umpires. An appeal may be an act that unmistakably indicates an appeal. Play or attempted play. This is important, so we got to remember this. A player attempted play shall be interpreted as a legitimate effort by the defensive player who has possession of the ball to retire a runner. This definition isn't in there. This is one of the few things where I would keep this in here, even though it's from the NCAA rulebook, because it defines it. This may include an actual attempt to tag a runner, a fielder running toward a base, the ball in an attempt to force or tag a runner, or actually throwing to another defensive player in an attempt to retire a runner. The fact that the runner is not out is not relevant. A fake or feint to throw shall not be deemed a play or attempt to play. So remember that because that's important. All right, here's your high school rule. Article 1. Each player of the team at bat shall become the batter and shall take a position within the batter's box on either side of home plate in the order which each player's name appears in the lineup card as delivered to the umpire prior to the game 4-1-3. This order shall be followed during the entire game except an entering substitute shall take the replaced player's place in the batting order. A batter is in proper order if the person follows the player whose name precedes his in the lineup, even though such preceding batter may have batted out of order. An improper batter is considered Improper batter is considered to be at bat as soon as the improper batter is in the batter's box and the ball is live. When the improper batter's infraction is first discovered by either team, time may be requested and the improper batter replaced by the proper batter with the improper batter's ball and strike count still in effect, provided the infraction is detected before the improper batter is put out or becomes a base runner. Only the defensive team may appeal batting out of order after the batter has completed the time at bat. Any outs made on the play stand. An out for batting out of order supersedes an out by the improper batter, or by a play on the improper batter. While the improper batter is at bat, if a runner advances because of a stolen base, balk, wild pitch, or pass ball, such advance is legal. So that means if in the process of me hitting and Tim's supposed to be up, let's see, Andy's right there. Andy advances to second. Andy gets to stay at second because of that. So that's a good thing to know. After the first inning, the first batter in each inning shall be the player whose name follows that of the last batter who completed the time at bat in the preceding inning. All right, this is a lot. This is the fun part. This is the penalties. So that was Article 1 and 2 for batting. The batter shall be called out on appeal when the batter fails to bat in the batter's proper turn and another batter completes the time at bat in the proper batter's place. When the improper batter becomes a runner or is put out and the defensive team appeals to the umpire before the first legal or illegal pitch, that's interesting, or play or attempted play, that's the key thing to remember, or prior to the international base on balls or before the infielders have left the diamond, if a half inning is ended. The umpire, page 45, this is from the 2003 rule book, Rule 7-2, shall declare the proper batter out and return all runners to base occupied at the time of the pitch. When the improper batter becomes a runner or is put out and a legal pitch or illegal pitch has been delivered to the succeeding batter or international base on balls occurred or all infielders left the diamond after the half inning and before an appeal is made, the improper batter becomes the proper batter and the results of the improper batter's turn at bat become legal. Oh boy. When the proper batter is called out because of a proper batter failed to bat in turn, the next batter shall be the batter whose name follows that of the proper batter thus called out. When the improper batter becomes the proper batter, no appeal is properly made as above. The next batter shall be the batter whose name follows that of such legalized improper batter. The instant an improper batter's actions are legalized, the batting order picks up with the name following that of the legalized improper batter. Note, with several players bat out of order before the discovery is made, so that a player's time at bat occurs while that player is a runner, such player remains on base, but that player is not out as a batter. All right, so this is a lot.
Are we studying quantum physics here?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. And that's why that's what I'm about to make it like, listen, there's two types of umpires. There's rules guys and there's guys that can just flat out work. And rules guys and guys that can flat out work, when they're combined, they're deadly. I'm not a huge rule guy, to be honest with you. I'm not. I know the rule book. I passed the test for the first time in 13 years. I got 100 on the NCAA test. And it's something I work on. Like, I have 4 different rule books that I read. I highlight them. I take notes, and I still mess stuff up on the test. But I can apply it on the field, which is the good piece. That's the piece you got to do. And this is what we're going to do now, is we're going to work to apply it on the field. All right, so here it is. If the improper batter is still at bat and the defense appeals too early, it's simple. You bring the guy up whose name's in the order, and you let him bat. The count doesn't change. He just fills in. If it's 0-2, it's 0-2 when he comes up. You do not be talking to an out here, and don't let the offensive coach, and this may seem odd, but it could happen. If they admit they bat out of order, don't let them take an out. That's not how it works. All right. If the defense appeals at the correct time, after an improper batter has completed his time at bat and before the subsequent pitch or post continuous play, attempted play, the person who should have batted, the proper batter, not the person who batted, the improper batter, is called out. So if our order is Abel, Baker, Charlie, Daniel, Charlie bats in the first slot, and he wasn't supposed to. We're going to call Abel out upon appeal, and then Baker will come up as his time at bat. Any runner advancement because the improper batted ball must return to the base at the time of the pitch, and any runner who becomes out during a continuous action must return to his base, and the out is nullified. That's all if the appeal is done correctly. All right, this is where it gets simple. Even like as simple as it can be. All you need to know is who are the last two hitters. If it's batting out of order, we only need to know two things. Who hit last? Okay. Who batted prior to the last hitter? So you're going to have three guys in a row, right? You only need to know who hit before that guy and who is supposed to hit next. If it's A, B, C, D, B is at first base, D comes up, C was supposed to bat, C's out, B stays on base. This is the easiest way I've ever heard explained, and it's the easiest way I can try to explain it to you. You only need to know those two guys because those are the guys. The player on the official lineup card following the hitter, batter one, is now the legal batter up to bat. If that player did not bat, the offensive team is guilty of batting out of order. That's it. That's how easy it is. And like it made it, that sentence simplified it for me, and I'm hoping it helps you guys too. I've never had one in my career. I think we're going to start seeing it more and more with like in college, it's got to be a pitcher DH. I know in high school you can DH for anybody, but they might be using like they call him a two-way player, so that then when that guy subs out, you can keep him in as a DH. If a team claims batting out of order, all we need to know is who the last two batters are. It doesn't matter who just batted. The person who batted before him is legal, and the lineup picks up from there. If necessary, at the high school level, you're not going to have an official scorekeeper. If you're due and it's the state series, get that person on the horn if you can, and you loop them in because they're the one who has everything. If your lineup card is sweaty and wet or whatever happens, it's Illinois in the spring, sucks. That paper's cheap. They fall apart. All right, so you guys will be able to cheat because you can see it. So I'll just go through them. This is the most common occurrence of batting out of order. Abel's on first with two outs. Baker is batting with a 1-1 count. The next pitch is called the ball. Abel attempts to steal second, is called out for the third out. Next inning, Charles will lead off and reach his base. At that point, the defensive team claims a batting out of order. So with that, Abel made the third out of the previous inning while Baker was still at bat, and had not completed his time at bat. Baker is the proper batter to lead off the next inning. However, Charles batted. Charles is an improper batter. So what we're going to do there is after the appeal is completed, we'll call Baker out and Charles is removed from the bases. Charles follows Baker in the lineup and will be the next hitter with one out. So Charles gets the hit again, but he's up again. But now he's got an out. Abel bats and is put out number one. Charles then, and your batting order's on the left side of the slide. Charles then bats. Charles makes a safe hit reaching first base before any pitch is thrown to the next batter. And member of the defensive team claims the offensive team is batted out of order. A pitch was thrown to Charles, thus legalizing Abel's at bat. Baker is the proper batter. Baker did not bat, making Charles an improper batter. Baker is called out for out number 2. Charles is removed from the bases. Now Charles will come back up and hit. Again, we're only looking at two things. We're looking at hitter 1 and hitter 2. So we're looking at Abel's at bat being legalized by the pitch. And then that would be with Abel on base, that would mean Baker should bat. And since Baker didn't bat, he would be the proper batter. Charles hit, and he's an improper batter. So we're only looking at two things: the guy that hit first, and then the guy that hit should hit next. If that guy that should hit next didn't hit next, guess what? They batted out of order. All right. Example 3. Abel bats and is put out. That's out number 1. Charles bats. Charles gets a hit. He's at first base. Baker comes to bat, and a strike is thrown to Baker. Now a member of the defensive team claims the offensive team is batted out of order. All right. So with this one, we legalize Charles at bat by throwing a pitch to Baker. The proper batter is supposed to be Daniel because Charles' bat was legalized. Daniel didn't bat, making Baker an improper batter. But the appeal was made in this case too early during the at bat. So we're going to bring Daniel up with an 0-1 count, and Charles stays at first base. All right. Abel bats and is put out. That's out number 1. Edward then bats and reaches first base. Charles comes to bat and reaches base, advances Edward to second on the hit. Now they're claiming that they batted out of order. A pitch was thrown to Charles, thus legalizing Edwards at bat. Frank is supposed to bat now. Frank did not bat, making Charles the improper batter. Frank is out. Charles is removed from the base. Edward returned to first base. George is the next batter. That's where you only look at the two. Once you're out, you don't get to hit again. So we're going to bring George up to hit, and we have 2 outs with Edward at first base. So again, we're only looking at the guy that hit, the first guy, the next guy, and that should tell us who our proper hitter should be. And if that guy doesn't come up, it's improper, and then we start calling people out. All right, play 4. Abel bats and is put out number 1. Edward then bats and reaches first base. Frank comes to bat, reaches base. Edward advances to second on the hit. That's the one we just did, isn't it? Yeah. All right, here we go. Abel bats and is put out. Charles bats out of turn and reaches first base. Baker then comes to bat and walks. Charles is at second base. Edwards then comes to bat and takes a strike. All right, so these are the fun ones, right? This is where we're going to start having some fun. So Charles should be the proper batter. However, in professional baseball, unaffiliated professional baseball, college baseball, and high school baseball, and Little League baseball, you cannot put a ghost runner on. We don't get to do that. Since he's on base, he's skipped. So your proper batter is Daniel, making Edwards an improper batter. However, the appeal was made too early in this case because Edward was still at bat and he only took a strike. Daniel is brought up to the plate with an 0-1 count. So that'll be one that you might see and might happen. Some of these these are actually from test questions from the NCAA. So, like, I've never seen any of this. Thank God. My brain would become a pretzel. So here's your play. Frank bats, gets a base hit. So Frank's our leadoff guy, number 6. George bats, gets a base hit. Correct, number 7. Hooker bats and is hit by a pitch. Frank moves to third. George moves up to second. We're still good. Daniel bats, hits a grand slam. Edwards bats, hits a home run. Now, a member of the defense claims the offensive team batted out of All right, I'm recording. We're recording again. Just I don't know if you guys have to accept with this or not.
So does that grand
Um,
slam stand then?
yes, yes, it does. It does stand. That's why I said you're going to have an ejection because somebody's going to lose their ever loving mind about that, and guess what? There's not going to be much you can do about it. It's the rule. Batting out of orders rarely happens, and the rule is confusing. That's the double whammy of it all. If you have batting out of order situation, this and so I'm lucky, right? I work 3 man and I get a few 4 man games every year in the Big Ten. I'm lucky. Like I get to have 3 other guys probably all smarter than me on the field, and you guys are working 2 man or 1 man. So just remember when you do this, don't be afraid to get the book. There's no time or there's no reason for you not to get the crew together and uh and get a rule or just get your rule book and go through it and look at it. The high school rule is very clear. It's actually easier to read than the NCAA rule. I like it a lot more. Um, the only thing that I would worry about is if you don't do this and you bat it out of order and you got a protest, then you'd have a bigger issue to answer. You don't want to ever get the call from the assigner about a game you had. So that's batting out of order in a nutshell. I'll take any questions you guys might have about anything right now. You can ask about college baseball. You can ask about batting out of order. You can ask about anything you want. And if I have an answer, I'll give it to you. If not, I'll find somebody that can, to be honest with you. Otherwise, I told Al it was going to be quick. I'm doing the same presentation, but in the college version on Thursday night. So, any questions from anybody?
Can we go back to the previous slide just to review it again?
Sure. Yeah, sure can. This one right here, the one where we
Yeah,
had
where we had the home runs and everything.
the Grand Slam. Sure. Let's go through it piece by piece. Okay. And it stinks because I'm moving my cursor on my screen, but I'm using my iPad to display this. So let me see if I can do this. All right. We start with Frank. Okay. Frank, there we go. Frank's our first hitter of the inning. He's proper. He's Edward made the out inning before. We're all legal and good. After Frank, George comes up and he gets a hit. Thanks, Tim. So George comes up, proper hitter, gets a hit. Hooker then comes up and is hit by a pitch. Frank moves up, George moves up, we're still good. Now, Irwin should come up. But maybe, I don't know, maybe Daniel's hit not in the 9 hole all year and he's been hot and now they're moving him up to the 4 spot. Who knows? Daniel now comes up. Daniel hits a grand slam, 4-run score. So technically he's improper right now. But to make his improperness accountable through the appeal process, they'd have to appeal to Edward. So before the pitch is thrown to Edward, they'd have to appeal. They don't do that. Edward bats, he hits a home run. He's now Daniel's grand slam is now proper. Edward bats, hits a home run. What we did when all this happened, we skipped over the 9 hole, the 1 hole, the 2 hole, the 3 hole, and got to the 4 hole. And once we did that, the 4 hole is once we got to Edward and Edward got a pitch, we can't appeal Daniel. And Edward's the proper batter. Daniel is our improper batter that screwed everything up. He would be the one we'd appeal to before we threw a pitch to Edward. But Edward hit a home run, so Edward is legal too. So your next hitter in this case would be Frank. So Frank's going to get 2 at-bats in the same inning without batting through the order. Does that help?
Yep.
So theoretically, if they would have appealed while Daniel was up, that is technically if they would have appealed, caught it right away and appealed while he was up, let's say it was a 1-1 count before he hit his grand slam, then
Sure.
he would have just gone back to the dugout and Irwin would have come up with the bases loaded. Nobody, no outs, no nothing. It would have just reverted to the proper batting order, and that would have been the end of it.
Yes, and he would have had a 1-1 count.
It would have 1-1 count. Exactly. Okay.
You are correct.
Hey Ben.
Yeah.
I used to coach, and when an improper batter came up, I let that bat happen, and after that bat happened, if they was on base, we always get that out. However, if we got the out, I wouldn't say anything, and then 3 innings or 2 innings later, that guy comes up. I always thought he was still the improper batter because they're still batting out of order. You're saying that once I don't call that, he's a proper batter, correct?
No, that's only for that time at bat. I'm sorry. That's a great question. So the batting order is the batting order. This batting order that's right here, that's in this box,
Yep.
right here, that never changes. That's on the lineup card that you've been given, unless they make a substitution, right? If they
Correct.
put Samuel in, right, in place of Frank, Samuel sitting in that sixth spot. So in this case, if you bat out of order and you're still like, let's say Daniel starts hitting in the 1 spot or in the 9 spot. Let's say he's, in this case, he would have been in the 9 spot. Let's say he stays there. He's still improper. So if he comes up again 2 innings later and hits after Hooker, as long as there's not a pitch thrown or a play or attempted play, then you can appeal that and he would be out.
Okay, so I was doing that right still. I must have misunderstood what you were saying though. But
Yeah,
that makes sense.
You know what? That was on me. I wasn't clear about that. That's a great question, actually.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, if he stays in that spot, unless the coach has come to you and like, here's the whole thing with it. Like,
they would have to resubstitute that.
yes, yeah, they'd have to reinsert that guy in that spot and then do that, and then you'd lose that. Once you're substituted, you're gone, so he'd be lost because you can re-enter, but you can't. You can't re-enter the re-entry guy. Like the original batting order can be substituted for, but the guy that comes in can't be re-entered then. So, that is 100% correct. You are 100% correct with that. That's a great question.
So I guess just for the other umpires, this might be the kid's second at bat that he gets called and appealed as batting out of order, and that could indeed happen, and they might have to make that call for a kid's second at bat.
Yeah, it may not. Honestly, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'd rather have it happen later, because then you can look like, and your saving grace is, sorry, my wife's on her way home. Yes, grab your own food. Food, not good. Sorry. It's a quiet night in my house. My daughter's got cheer. My middle son is playing cross at school. My wife had basketball, so actually have the house to myself, which is great. But yeah, no, you are 100% correct. That it could be the second time. The order is the order. So again, just look at who hit previously. So if let's see, Hooker. So if Hooker hit previously, and let's say it's the 4th inning now, and Daniel comes up again, we want Daniel to get on base. However Daniel gets on base, and Daniel's got to get on base. Then before Edward comes up, the coach appeals. Yes, you're right. Before we throw a pitch or make a play, let's be sure that then Daniel's out and Irwin would then come up or Irwin's out and Abel's up the bat. Because we're going to call the guy that should be the proper batter out, and then we're going to move back to the order. The next hitter would be Abel.
So
So
I guess
this,
I got another specific question too. So like I
Sure.
understand this situation like itself of like who's up to bat and who is the proper batter. But let's just say that the defensive team actually identifies Edward being the at bat or being the improper batter before he hits his home run. Does it
In this play?
in this specific play, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So that would mean, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that would mean
Sure.
that since they called Edward as the improper batter, would Daniel's at bat just be a complete like waste? Be Daniel be out and everyone would go back to where they were prior to the pitch, so it'd be still bases loaded with Edward up to bat, or how would
No.
that?
No. Once a pitch is thrown to Daniel, he is now the proper batter. So once a pitch is thrown, or there's a pickoff attempt, or there's a play made by the defense, now the offense cannot initiate a play. So the offense can't like try to get caught in a rundown to try and make that a play. They cannot initiate that play. The offense, and I was going to get to this in a second, but the offense cannot initiate that play. So if the offense initiates a play that causes a play to happen, that play does not invalidate the batting out of order, if that makes sense. So if Daniel would have just hit a double and be standing on second base, and he goes to get in a run, well, he's legal at that point once he gets hit or once he gets a pitch. If Daniel's this example stinks because he hits a grand slam and then we go to Edward. So let me look at this.
Yeah, that's primarily what I'm just like getting upon is like whether or not Daniel's at bat actually counts instead of just being called out and everyone returns back to where they were, which in which case this would be bases loaded. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
Daniel's at bat. In this case, Daniel's at bat's going to count because they threw him a pitch.
Oh, so it did count. Okay.
But
yeah,
I thought you said if they caught it right away because he batted out of order for Irwin.
And but he had if they catch it while he's at bat, if there's a 1-1 count, Irwin would just come up and replace him.
Okay, now I get it. Okay,
but once they threw him a pitch, he became the proper batter. So all these other guys,
no,
Irwin,
not once he threw a pitch. Once he did something.
Well, once they threw a pitch to Edward. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
Once they threw a pitch to Edward, Daniel became the proper batter.
But if I never got to that point, if Daniel hits the grand slam, can they
Edward
go?
Edward hit a home run.
But if they never got to Edward yet, Daniel hits the grand slam, and they go, oh shit, he's out of order.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the question. If they never threw a pitch to Edward,
or even just throws a pitch specifically, like it's 0-1 right now to Edward, before it's the home run.
It doesn't matter. Once you throw him the pitch, he is now the proper. Or no, you would just bring up Irwin. If it's 0-1 and they say, hey, they're batting out of order, you know what? You're right. Irwin, you're up with an 0-1 count.
But if they claim batting out of order before any pitch is thrown to Edward, then is Daniel's grand slam nullified?
Yes. Because in that case, he did bat out of order. The proper batter was Irwin.
So then Irwin's out. All the runners remain on base, and
Abel comes up. Bases loaded, 1 out. Yep.
And then Daniel still bats in the 4-hole where he improperly hit the grand slam. He comes back up again in his proper spot.
Yes, 100%.
Oh yeah, that'd be exciting.
No, that's miserable. Not exciting. That's miserable. But I mean, in the end, that's what you get paid to do, to officiate the rules. And this is one where I'll be honest with you guys, if you get I honestly, and I've thought back, I've never had batting out of order. Even the only time that I came close was at a camp in 2012. And I got it right, but I did so much other crap wrong with 3-man that didn't even do anything for me. I had a shitty day at the park, let's just say.
So in other words, the possibility of this occurring is relatively low, like almost a non-event almost.
I would say
You're better off. You're going to get struck by lightning before this happens to you.
Yeah, and I would say
Great.
I think it happens a little bit more, not necessarily at the
I
high
go
school
over.
level, but at the
Yeah.
like at travel
That's what I was going to
in
say.
tournaments and stuff. You'll
Yep.
you'll see that. You'll see this.
Go to the dugouts beforehand and say, I tell, do not bat out of order. Make sure you know when you're up. And I tell the coaches that. I tell the players that. I go to the other dugout, say the same thing.
So take preventative measures.
Oh, always. I go, I do not want to deal with it.
Well, I wouldn't take that approach in a collegiate game or a high school game. Maybe
Yeah,
on
well,
a weekend series of
a freshman
8 games.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would definitely steer clear of that, because then I think your credibility as an official is going to get shot, and Kevin, Alan, and Jeff are going to get a phone call, be like, "Who are you sending out here?"
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I know you're not calling high school games anymore, but I seem to recall, I could be wrong, but I seem to recall when my son played freshman baseball. The freshman coaches they're pretty, number one, they're kind of overwhelmed, and number two, they're kind of nonchalant at the same time. And I seem to recall an instance where this might have happened, either somebody subbed improp, whatever it was, and I think the coaches were like, we'll just, if the coaches decide, yeah, we'll just swap it out, or we'll just leave him as is, and we'll change we'll just change it on our cards at a low level freshman game. How are you? I mean, there's how are you handling that? Are you like, no, we got to do this by the rules? Or if both coaches are like, yeah, let's just swap it out, are you like, all right, that's up to you guys?
I would not ever do that. But I mean, I worked freshman baseball for Jeff when I got back into umpiring, and it's on the coaches, and listen, I know I coached freshman baseball as well, so I know how it is. It's on the coaches to handle that and to make sure that their team's batting in the correct order, and it's your job as an umpire to enforce the rules. I don't believe there's any way you can be saved by subbing. The only way you could have a sub hit in a spot is an unannounced sub. And that's the only way that it could be saved if it was a sub. But in the end, if they bat out of order, that will happen. And then you need to enforce the rule as it's written, because there's like a thing. And if your assigner calls you and he leaves his first and last name on your phone, you're in trouble. I never want to get Tim Rafi's assigned in high school now, right? Or is it Rafi and Jeff?
It's Kevin, Alan, and Jeff.
Okay, so I never want to get a call from Kevin, Alan, or Jeff. I mean, I know Jeff well enough that he'd be like, "What the hell are you doing?" But at a time when I started, dude, I was deathly afraid of Jeff Collis, and I know him well enough now. He'll laugh at that, but it was the truth. I never wanted to screw anything up, and I'll be honest with you, when I got back into it, I would have screwed this up. It's not easy. It's a thing that if it happens, don't let coaches talk you into something, because in the end, that only will go against you. And you may not think it will, but I can tell you, as a guy that was a former AD and now I'm technically a middle school AD when my role as an assistant principal, it doesn't look good. And I know my assigner well enough that I'll be like, hey, he doesn't know the rules. Like, I don't know if I want him here. Like, you can talk to him and see if you can get me an answer that I'm going to go with, but I'm not gonna just leave that alone and not get it. I think you got to get it, and you gotta handle it when it comes. And that's my philosophy on it. That's also a philosophy of, I mean, I can speak for Jeff. I know Jeff well enough, and Tim and I have worked together a ton of times, and I know Tim wouldn't let it go either. So I think you gotta get it. You don't let them talk you into that. We're just going to do this. Well, the IHSA uses National Federation rules, and let's enforce those rules as they're written. Does it get an out? Yeah. Are they gonna say something? Yeah. I'd rather have them say something to their AD about me, and then have their AD call Jeff or Alan or Kevin, be like, "What the hell is this?" And them say, "Well, so you're mad the guy enforced the rule," because that'll give you a lot of credibility. And you know what? That there's no AD worth their salt that's gonna not back down the minute they hear it. So you're mad the guy enforced the rule. They're more going to get in their own coach's rear end at that point and talk to them about what they did. So just make sure that you're doing what you need to do to be professional on the field. And if that means that you got to call a kid out because they batted out of order, you know what? That sucks, but it's your responsibility to do that. I mean, Tim, what do you think?
So yeah, Benny, if I can jump on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Steve, I believe you asked the question at the lower level game. Again, advocating for what Ben just said. Yeah, we're not going to go against the rule when we officiate. However, in a lower level high school game, your saving graces is typically 99.9% of the coaches will not hand you a lineup card. So that's going to be your way out at that point. However, that doesn't make you exempt from knowing the basics of the rule. Okay?
Yeah. 100%.
If the situation arises, you're going to have to, because there's going to be one that's going to be like, hey, I want the out, or I want what I'm going to get out of this. So, but again, your saving grace may be, hey, you guys didn't hand me the lineup card. So that's a whole different road you're going to go down, and that might go away. However, at the varsity level, you're going to have to enforce that rule no matter what they say, because they're going to, and you are expected to get lineup cards and adjudicate those appropriately. So
Can I say something
things.
real quick?
Yeah, one
No.
more note, Billy, if I can just finish this
Yeah, I'm
thought.
sorry. I thought you were done. Sorry.
To wrap this up, it's best to get like an Excel sheet or a piece of paper and run through these examples, cross the names out, circle the names like I was talking about last week, and then run through them example by example, line by line. And once you start doing that, because as Bill said, excuse me, not Bill, Benny said earlier, and I mentioned, you're going to probably going to get struck by lightning before this is going to happen to you in a game. But when it does, at least you'll have an idea. We're not expecting you to know it expertly like Bill Vincent knows it, but, and that was my cue for that. You're up next, Bill. But
I mean, I can tell you guys a story about Bill Vincent if you want to hear it real quick.
No.
Please.
Billy.
Oh, please.
So I worked a college game with Bill Vincent at Wheaton College. Wheaton College was playing Tarleton College, and I was new in the college game at this point. I was working my way up through D3. Getting an assignment from Matt at that time was huge. I've never been so happy to have Bill Vincent on the field with me, to use his like police brain to tell me to shut my mouth and walk away, and for me to actually recognize that I'm listening to someone who I respect so much, and probably saved me from being done at that point. Because if I would have got my hands on this guy that was talking a lot to me, it probably wouldn't have been good for either one of us. So, Billy, I still need to thank you for that to this day.
That was a fun game. It's when you have the bar right attached to the field. That's never a
that's
good
always
sign.
a good time.
Yeah. I was going to say about the batting out of or the freshman, when you're doing freshman games or you're doing travel games, but let's say freshman high school games, and like they're not going to give you a card, have them give you a card, because that's where you practice. So I would say to you, And I've done a few freshman games and sophomore games. Recently now I'm older, so I've done a few of those where they call me last minute, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do those. One man, be fun. But I make the coaches give me a card because it's good practice for you because you never know if you think you're just doing freshman and sophomore one man all, and all of a sudden some umpire goes down and one of the assigner calls you and wants you to do that, and you got a chance to do two man. And when you do two man, your partner who's a veteran is going to put you probably on the plate because that's what you're used to. And if you're not used to handling a card, yeah, it could be problematic for you. So I would try to insist that those freshman and sophomore coaches give you lineup cards. It's my opinion because it helps you practice for when you get the game where you have the varsity game and you're going to have to handle a lineup card. Okay, thank you.
No, Billy, you're right. Give me 1 second, Tim. I got a lineup card upstairs.
Hey guys, well, Ben's doing that, and I'm not sure how much longer he's going to go. However, if you have further questions or administrative stuff, I could stick on. The other thing that I was thinking about doing is I'm not sure if anybody's printed their test or has been on the IHSA site. But if you have your test, we could start going through the questions together. We're not going to do all of them because there's no way I'm going to do that tonight. But we could do at least the first page, which I have 12 of them, and we can just run through them and answer them if you want to do that. So
Yeah, I already have mine printed out and I finished it actually earlier today, but I don't really have any questions about the test. I think I want to
Nick,
say like at least two or three of them that were repeats from last year, but I could be mistaken.
You're an overachiever, but
all right.
Thank you.
So you got, I'll take pictures. You can't see it because I got my black background blurred. But I got two lineup cards I just grabbed. Okay, so I keep every lineup card from every game I've ever worked. I don't know why. It's stupid. My wife makes fun of me. But I do.
Hey Ben.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. Like I write all my notes on separate things for like stuff we have to track in games and stuff at the collegiate level. Like these have stuff written on the back, like defensive conferences and like the head coach's names and stuff like that. So, but I wish I would have known now. I wish I would have known when I got back into the game what I know now. And like my lineup cards, I scribble, I write all over them. I do all sorts of crazy crap on them, but it makes sense to me. So if I ever have to, like, if we have a rain delay or whatever, and we're not going to play the next day, or the game gets moved and I got to give the lineup card up or take a picture of it, I always have it to take a picture of it and send it to whoever's working next. It's good common practice, and it lets you help out the brotherhood so that guy's not walking into something. Billy, you got something?
I know.
Oh,
sorry.
So I went to grab one, but I didn't grab one where there were any changes, of course, because that's the luck of the pull. But yeah, like normally, like I'll cross out and make I'll find a couple and put them in here, and I'll upload those tonight. Where like I write out, and so I don't write down the names. I only write down the numbers because A, my handwriting sucks. B, I use a Sharpie when I'm on the plate because it doesn't run in the rain and it writes really well on the paper lineups that I get from coaches. And C, I've just been doing it for a long time, so I'm not changing now. I change the color every so often, which is a big thing. People like make fun of me for it because sometimes I'll have a pink Sharpie in my pocket. But I just write down the number. And the reason I do that is that the number can supersede the name in the lineup. So you can write down number 2, and number 2 can actually be Charles, but you got Baker listed as number 2. Well, number 2 is the correct hitter because the number supersedes the name. Wait, did I screw that up? Billy, did I screw that up? I might have screwed that up.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of that.
It is Mark, you're right. It is the
It's
name
usually the
supersedes the number.
name, then the number.
Yeah, you're right. I only write down the number, so I'm an idiot. But I only write down the number because I can't. My handwriting sucks.
And then
But also,
remember too on substitution, as long as you're talking about that too, that this, the number name situation. So if they call and they say like he's an illegal substitution, but the name's correct, Ben, you might talk a little bit about that too, because I've actually had
yeah,
that with Bradley where, their
yeah.
coach came out on me with Viv and we had that big discussion. It was just an unreported substitution.
Who, Elvis?
Yes. He didn't
So
know that. He
guys,
didn't know that rule.
well, really, because he's on the rule committee.
I know. He told me that. But we're like, yeah, it's good to know
So
because you're wrong.
yeah. So if you have a guy's name who's just an unannounced substitute, it doesn't matter. Like if a guy comes in on defense, and let's say, in my case, the PA announcer doesn't announce him, or they fail to report him to you as the umpire, and you don't point him in, that doesn't matter. Once he's in and he's in for a play, he's in. So if that happens, right, like you hope you catch it. But and I'll be honest with you, there's times where that's happened to me. Like a guy gets substituted and the change doesn't get reported, and that guy comes up. Normally it's in a midweek for me, which is miserable because you got 25 pitchers thrown and everybody's trying to get in a bat. But you bring that guy up and they're like, no, he's not up. Well, hey, when did you go in? I went in last thing on defense. Hey, Tim, did he go in last thing on defense? Yeah, he played third base. He was in third base. He's legal. So make sure you know that an unannounced substitute is still a legal substitute once he's in for a play.
And even if his number's wrong, but his name's right.
Yes.
It's the name.
Yep. It's the name over the number. So now I'm going to have to change how I do things and start writing. I'm going to have to write neat again, which is miserable. But yeah, guys, like lineup cards are something that you need to practice with and you need to figure out a way to make it work for you. Guys do all sorts of different things. Some guys use the book. I don't use the book anymore. The only thing I carry with me in cases where I have it is if I have video review, I have my video review card so I know what I can go look at and what I can't. Because you never want to go look at something you can't go look at because you'll get in trouble for that. But making sure that you have the way that you do your lineup card is the way you're going to do your lineup card. Like there's no uniform way to do it. There's I've seen lots of different ways, but always making sure that like, and when I worked high school, I used to, when we had a substitute come in, let's say we had a pinch runner for, the big burly first baseman who's slow and they're down 2 runs, but he smoked a double in the gap and he lumbered over to second base. Well, they bring in Johnny, number 14, to run for him. And, Billy's the big first baseman. I'd circle his number and then I'd write down Johnny's number. And then when Johnny went out and they brought Billy back in to play defense, I would put an X over my circle. So I knew that he'd been used already and that he had already been substituted for. So he can't be substituted for again without leaving. Then he'd have to leave the game. And then I would cross out the other guy's number. So I knew that he was no longer usable. And I did the same. I wrote down courtesy runners in a separate spot, normally on the back of the lineup card. And I wrote down the catcher's number and I drew an arrow as to who the courtesy runner, and I wrote CR and then number 2, courtesy runner for the catcher. That's just how I did things. You can do things. I mean, it kind of still, if I work an NAI game, like NAI has courtesy runners for the catcher. So I have to still kind of remember that. But yeah, you guys are going to do whatever you want with your lineup cards. It's your thing. Like you have to do what works for you. And that's part of that whole thing with being comfortable. We were talking, Tim was talking about, you get the call, or Bill was talking about you get the call up. Well, availability sometimes is greater than ability. So if you're available, you may get the call and then you go up and you have your set pattern of how you do things and you don't change it. Like I'll tell you right now, McGloon's not on this call, so I'll tell you a secret about Mike McGloon. Mike McGloon, before every game, probably 15 minutes before the game, he goes in the bathroom and takes a dump. No matter where, no matter when it is, no matter where it's at. Every time. Now, I love Mike. I have 4 weekends with him this year. It's great. We get to go to Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is going to be awesome. And but he does it every time, and it's like clockwork. And it's to the point now where it's become a taking a McGloon as a catchphrase. So you guys got to figure out, and it's different for every guy, right? Like I subscribe to the old school philosophy. You don't take a dump in the locker room unless there's a separate wing. That's just me. That's how I am. And I try to find a bathroom where I'm at. I'm lucky that I have the opportunity to work with a locker room most of the places I go, which is great. But still, it's like my routine is my routine. I don't change my routine for anybody. Like when I eat, when I like what I drink before a game, what I do and how I do it, I don't change that for anybody. So just keep your routine. And the more you're in your routine, the easier these things will get, especially when it comes to things like batting out of order and things like that, because it's like muscle memory. Once you start practicing it, you're going to know how to do it. And like, I'm kind of a nerd. Once I figured out that I could figure this out and not be completely an idiot about it, I started going back and through and doing the thing that Tim said. I was writing out lineups and just messing with it to see if I could catch myself up. And once I figured out who those two people were, the proper and the improper, I was good to go.
Hey Ben, can I jump in real quick? A couple on the
Sure.
batting out of order things that have
Yeah.
worked for me.
Yeah. 100%.
So running a baseball park and having travel ball and having a million games. We'll have announced games. So if you're at a game where you have an announcer, when I'm umpiring, I try to recognize all my hitters, the best I can. Like I know kind of who my leadoff hitter, my 9 hitter, but kind of getting to know who the hitters are, just physically, visually looking at them. And there are cases where I've had a batting out of order situation occur. And remember, you as an umpire, you can't call a batting out of order. Only the defensive team can call the batting out of order. So, like you as an umpire, even if you know they're batting out of order, you can't really say anything about it. But I've had a case where the announcer announced the wrong hitter coming up, and it tipped me off that it was a batting out of order, and the catcher caught the same thing. And so the catcher said to me, like quietly, he goes, as the hitter's getting into the box, he goes, I think he's batting out of order. And so rather than go through like the batting out of order situation, I said, well, you should let your coach know. And so what happened was the batter took a pitch, so he legitimized himself. And I just put the new batter in. So rather than go through and wait for him to hit, because the catcher said that to me, I was like, well, let your coach know, hoping that he would tell him right now so that I could fix that problem before it became a problem with him, actually completing his at bat.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, that's how I'll be honest with you. If that happens to me, if my games are announced, and I have games that aren't announced, so like if my games are announced, then like that's where things are going to get caught. But you'd hope, I mean, and stuff trickles down, right? Trickles down from big leagues to college, big leagues, minors, college, down to high school, down to travel ball. You'd hope the batting out of order would slowly become less of a thing because these guys all know what they're doing, right? And sometimes everybody's going to make a mistake, but when it comes to you, make sure that you get your stuff right because that's going to be the most important thing. Tim, I'm done. If nobody else has any more questions or they want to ask any more questions, I'm good to go whenever you guys are.
My son
Hey,
played
Bill.
at Fort Wayne. My son played at Fort Wayne. What are you excited about going to Fort Wayne for?
Well, there's lots of reasons I'm excited.
Besides working with your buddy, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been to Fort Wayne. My wife just got home, so I haven't been to Fort Wayne in 10 years. So I'm excited to be back there. But it's also, it's a weekend. I'm actually the crew chief for the weekend, so I'm excited about that. But also, that's in the horizon, and they don't give you a hotel
Right.
room, so we're actually getting an Airbnb. So the three of us will be in an Airbnb together.
Nice. There you go.
So, and we're riding, like, the third guy on our cruise, this guy Kyle Klink. I don't know if Kyle's from Wisconsin. I don't know if Kyle's from Chicago. Kyle's from somewhere in the Midwest, and we're all probably
He's
going to ride
from
together.
he's from Wisconsin.
Yeah, and well, if you look at his arbiter, Billy, it says he lives in Chicago.
Okay.
So he's playing that game. But it's going to be a good weekend because the three of us are going to go together. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have any concerns about anything getting handled in the field. Also, the game is not on TV, which is great. Actually, I think one of them are. But the Horizon doesn't mandatorily use replay, and there's lots of factors that are make that fun because of like and for me the games are secondary. Like my fun comes from the guys that I'm with on the field and the guys that I work with. So that's where I get my fun, if that makes sense.
No, yeah. No, I'm just saying. I was just teasing because Fort
Yeah.
Wayne's not. It's not nothing. It's almost not as. There's a lot of high schools that are actually probably nicer than their field.
Yeah, there's a guy named John Johnson who is from Central Illinois who used to umpire. He said the best weekend he ever had was in Fort Wayne. They got rained out 2 days in a row, and they went to roller derby one night. He tells that story all the time, and he's like, "It was the best weekend we ever had because we went to roller derby." It's that stuff that I'll remember when I'm done. I won't remember the final score. I don't remember any of that. It'll be the stuff that happened after that I'll remember, not the stuff that happened any other time, So
I got a question. I don't know if you have time, but so I had
no,
a
I do.
scenario.
Yeah.
I had a scenario that I was wondering. So all right, so let's say three, like just going through a scenario, 3 hits for 2. All right, so
Okay.
they don't catch it. Now 2 is hitting in what would be 4 spot, but they don't
Okay.
catch it. So now 2 is the proper batter. Well, not yet. So now let's say 4 comes up and they pitch to him. So you now made 2 your legal proper batter. So
2 got on base, right?
2 and 3 got on base. So
So 3 got on base before 2.
Yes. So
Okay.
technically they catch it, but they've already pitched a pitch to 4, and 2 was proper. So now 3 is technically your batter, but he's on base. And I think I saw. So if he's on base, you just skip him. So is it 4 that's you're just gonna go to 4 and let 4 hit?
Yep. Just going to 4 and letting 4 hit.
Okay. All right. I want to make sure I have that right.
Yep, 100%. That would actually be one that you probably see more than anything. And I think there's an example of that in the examples. But you guys can go back and look through them. If you have anything, you can message me. I'll be honest with you. I'll try to answer it, but I'm gonna reach out and get help from my friends because that's what we do. And if we're not doing that, then the brotherhood that is umpiring it's no longer a brotherhood. It's cutthroat and it's business. I mean, the pay is well enough now. It should be business anyway, but that side of it as being an umpire is something that we need to hold true to. Anybody else?
Hey, Ben, it was great to see you. It's been a while, but thank you for presenting
Hey,
tonight
Billy.
too.
Yeah, Billy, we got to talk. Me and Mike McGloon were talking about running a 2-man camp for Matt Moore. So I know Viv and McGloon talked about it, but I think we're going to make that happen because Mark Winters wants to start creating a pipeline for guys so he can start developing his talent pool at D2.
Yeah, just call me anytime. But anyway, thank you for presenting. I appreciate it. It's nice to see you again. Have a good season.
Thanks, Billy. It's always a pleasure. You know that. All right, fellas.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I'm going to log off here. And you guys have I probably should shut off Alan's recording, huh?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep. No worries, guys. Have a good one. I wish you guys all the best. I hope you have a good spring.
Thank
nice
you.
and dry.
Yeah.